Betting on yourself sounds like the ultimate power move. You reject the safe money, gamble on your own talent, and the plan is simple. You ball out, then cash in with a monster contract. We love this storyline because it's bold, it's confident, and when it works, it's legendary. But here's the thing most fans don't realize. In the NBA, that gamble almost always ends badly. Since 2017, only 5 players have dared to take the qualifying offer and bet on themselves. 5. And most of them regretted it. Now this offseason, we might see 3 guys do it all at once. Cam Thomas, Jonathan Kuminga, and Quentin Grimes. That's historic. It could change the way players negotiate contracts, or it could leave at least one of them with the biggest mistake of their career. So today, let's break down why betting on yourself almost never works, the horror stories of players who fumbled the bag, the rare success stories, and why this new bet on yourself era could end badly for a whole new generation. Section 1. How rare is this? Let's start with the numbers, because it puts the risk into perspective. Between 2017 and 2021, 120 players were eligible for extensions. Here's what happened. 50% signed an extension with their team. 35% signed new deals elsewhere. 10% washed out of the league. And only 4%, that's like 1 out of every 25 players, actually bet on themselves by taking the qualifying offer. So when people talk about betting on yourself, it sounds like some common, smart business move. But the reality? Players almost never do it. And when they do, the odds are stacked against them. Section 2. The candidates this year. Which brings us to this offseason. Cam Thomas with the Brooklyn Nets. Jonathan Kuminga with the Warriors. Quentin Grimes after watching Josh Giddey secure a $100 million bag. All 3 guys are looking at their choices. Take the qualifying offer, basically a 1-year prove-it deal, or sign a long-term extension right now. The idea is, play well for 1 more season, become an unrestricted free agent, and then sign a much bigger deal next summer. The problem? We've seen how easily this gamble can backfire. Section 3. Dennis Schroeder's $80 million mistake. Let's start with the most famous modern example, Dennis Schroeder. It's 2021. He's playing next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the Lakers. The team had just won the 2020 title, and LA saw Schroeder as part of their long-term future. They offered him a 4-year, $84 million extension. That's generational money. But Schroeder thought he was about to hit the jackpot. He believed the Lakers were desperate, that he could command even more on the open market. So he said no, and then it all went downhill. In the playoffs, he struggled badly. In a must-win Game 5 against Phoenix, Schroeder went 0 for 9 with 0 points. That's the kind of performance that sticks in everyone's mind. The Lakers were bounced in the first round. Suddenly, Schroeder wasn't seen as a future cornerstone. He was seen as inconsistent, overconfident, and expendable. Meanwhile, cap space around the league dried up. Teams spent their money elsewhere. By the time the dust settled, Schroeder had no leverage. His big gamble ended with him signing a 1-year, $6 million deal in Boston. That's an $80 million mistake. Credit to Schroeder, though. He never made excuses. He kept working, rebuilt his career, and eventually signed solid deals again. But that $80 million, gone forever. That's the risk of betting on yourself. Section 4. Nerlens Noel's nightmare. Schroeder's story hurts, but Nerlens Noel's story is even worse. Go back to 2017. Noel was the 6th pick in the draft. A freak athlete, elite shot blocker, the kind of guy every team thought could anchor their defense. The Dallas Mavericks offered him a 4-year, $70 million contract. Not a max deal, but life-changing security. Noel thought he deserved more. He fired his agent, hired Rich Paul, and waited for bigger offers. The Mavs were so frustrated they pulled the deal completely. Suddenly, Noel was stuck. He had to sign the 1-year qualifying offer for about $4 million. Then disaster struck. He needed thumb surgery and missed 42 games. When he did play, he struggled. The coaching staff benched him. His locker room relationships soured. By the next offseason, no one was offering him serious money. He was forced to sign minimum contracts just to stay in the league. From $70 million guaranteed to the minimum, that's the nightmare scenario when betting on yourself goes wrong. Noel even tried to sue Rich Paul, blaming him for bad advice. But let's be honest, this one was on Noel. He gambled big, and he lost bigger. Section 5, the injury risk, Isaiah Thomas. Sometimes it's not about bad play. Sometimes it's just bad luck. Isaiah Thomas in 2017 is a perfect example. At 5 feet 9 inches, IT was coming off an MVP caliber season with the Celtics. He was their leader, their closer, their entire offense in crunch time. People were predicting a $200 million Supermax extension. He even joked, "They better back up the Brinks truck." Then, in the playoffs, he tore a labrum in his hip. The Celtics doctors told him it would be fine, so he played through it. But the damage was worse than anyone thought. Suddenly, teams saw him not as an MVP candidate, but as damaged goods. Instead of $200 million, Isaiah signed a one-year deal for just $2 million. He never got back to that level again. Now, this isn't a classic bet on yourself story, because Boston never officially offered him the deal. But it's a perfect example of how quickly value can vanish when injury hits at the wrong time. Section 6, why this era exists. So why are guys like Cam Thomas and Jonathan Kuminga even considering this? Why risk everything? The answer, the new collective bargaining agreement. The CBA has made teams way more cautious. They're not just handing out massive contracts to guys with holes in their game. Cam Thomas can score, sure, but he doesn't defend and he doesn't really create for others. In the old days, maybe he gets a $25 million per year deal anyway. Now, teams are offering lower, safer extensions. Players hate these offers. They look at a 4-year, $50 million extension and say, "Nah, I'll bet on myself, take the qualifying offer, and hit free agency unrestricted next year." But here's the kicker. In a couple years, the NBA's new $75 billion media rights deal is going to kick in. Salary cap is going to skyrocket. Big contracts are coming back. Until then, though, players are stuck in this awkward transition period where teams are lowballing them, and players are gambling to try and bridge the gap. Section 7, the few success stories. Of course, it's not always doom and gloom. There are success stories, and that's what keeps players believing. Miles Bridges is one example, but the gold standard here is Fred VanVleet. Section 8, today's big risks. Which brings us back to this offseason. Cam Thomas. He can score, but his own team just drafted 5 guys in the first round, 4 of them ball handlers. How much opportunity is he even going to get to showcase himself? The Nets have no incentive to boost his value. Jonathan Kuminga. The Warriors have reportedly offered him 2 years, $45 million, with a team option on the back end. He wants a player option instead, to control his next landing spot. Rumors say he's leaning toward the 1-year, $8 million qualifying offer. That's a huge risk. What if he doesn't get the role he wants in Golden State? What if he gets hurt? Suddenly, that $45 million guaranteed looks really good. Quentin Grimes. Watching Josh Giddey secure $100 million must sting. He could take a safe, team-friendly deal, or he could bet on himself. But if Thomas and Kuminga both gamble too, now all 3 are competing for the same limited pool of money in free agency. Only 1 or 2 will win big. At least 1 will lose badly. Section 9, the bottom line. This is why the bet on yourself era could end badly. Fans love the story. Players love the confidence. But the math doesn't lie. Most players who try this lose millions. Injuries, poor play, team politics. There are too many ways it can go wrong. The new CBA has squeezed the middle class of NBA contracts, and until the media rights money kicks in, players are stuck between 2 choices: accept a deal they don't love or risk it all on themselves. For guys like VanVleet, the gamble created generational wealth. For guys like Schroeder and Noel, it was a financial disaster. And for players like Cam Thomas, Kuminga, and Grimes, this offseason could define their careers. So what do you think? Is Cam Thomas really going to shock the world and cash in? Will Jonathan Kuminga turn down $45 million for an $8 million risk? Or will Quentin Grimes play it safe while the others gamble? One thing is certain, at least one of these guys will become the next big example of how betting on yourself can go wrong. Sometimes the boldest move isn't saying no. Sometimes the smartest move is taking the bag while it's right in front of you.